Story 1. I work in a big corporate building. The same older lady came by everyone's desk towards the end of the day to collect the trash. Just the sweetest lady ever, and every time she'd walk to my desk, she'd give me a big smile and ask me how my day was and chat for a minute as she got my trash. Usually, I'd dump it in for her. I had some rough days, but she had a way to cheer me up and send me home on a higher note. I know I'm not the only one, either. A few weeks back, our work implemented a new policy to cut down on trash usage. It's no longer allowed to have a trash bin at our desk, and we have to walk across the room and use the community trash to throw anything away. Not a huge deal, but the real reason they did it is to cut down on cost, which means the cleaning crew. Sadly, I haven't seen Sharon since. Story 2. Boss pitched a sales incentive trip to Cancun if the team hit the goal. My team exceeded the goal and then they canceled the trip. 2 people quit. I accepted a position with their main competitor, and less than a year later, they closed in bankruptcy. Karma's a beach. Story 3. Electrical contractor of 35 years, with 27 spent in the field. We earn paid time off hours based on the number of hours worked in a given week. Full-time employees earn what is equal to about 6 extra paid days off in a year, typically used for errands, sick days, taking care of children, and so on. One of the field employees is a known alcoholic, which all other field technicians are aware of. Word reached office personnel that this individual was using his paid time off because he had overindulged the night before and couldn't make it to work on time. The owner denied his paid time off claim, and he drove to the office to have a shouting match with the owner. The very next day, a company-wide email was sent stating that paid time off would be indefinitely suspended because it was being abused. It is unclear if what they did is legal. Instead of dealing with this one employee, they decided to use it as a way to save paying out around 180 earned days off throughout the entire company. This happened about a week ago, and morale dropped instantly. Most field technicians started showing up late, playing on their phones, and leaving early. A couple of guys have already quit, and it sounds like a large number of others are about to follow. I'm going to wait it out a couple of months as I'm owed a Yeti cooler and vacation time on my anniversary. Story 4. Small business with approximately 20 employees. The boss made a big speech about austerity measures and no raises this year. A week and a half later, he drives up in a brand new Silverado with all the bells and whistles, expense to the business, of course. He would hate to have to pay taxes on those profits. One of the less subtle members of the staff took a literal action in front of his office door. Story 5. Put up a poster that said, "Complaining is like vomiting. You feel better, but everyone around you feels sick." The morale was already bad, but it was an unpleasant way to criticize upset employees rather than do anything positive. Story 6. Telling employees that they are going to be fired if they don't make more sales. Then when someone quits, telling them, "No, that was just motivation. We were never going to fire you." Story 7. I told the hiring manager that I was disappointed in one of his hires because he knew literally nothing about our job and asked him, "Doesn't that cheapen my knowledge and expertise?" His response, "Well, let's be honest, your job doesn't really need all that, does it?" There were 4 other people at my level with varying fields of expertise at that meeting, and it got really quiet after that. Story 8. I once had a retail manager who sent out a memo that we worked so hard and did such a great job this month that she gets a bonus. That went over like a lead balloon. Story 9. Former teacher. The administrators at my school were usually pretty chill, but had a habit of randomly coming up with minor rules that they would enforce for us. Male teachers had to wear ties even on Jeans Day. Overall, it wasn't bad, except for the time an administrator made a crucial mistake. They banned staff from drinking coffee in front of students. Now, if you've never worked in a school, you'd think this isn't a big deal. When you spend nearly all of your day in front of students, it definitely is a big deal. First, we tried to find any loophole we could. Energy drinks, banned the next week. There, banned 2 days later. It was chaos. Eventually, we realized they couldn't fire an entire school's worth of teachers and aides, so we ended up doing the one thing that private schools fear most. We formed a union. Realistically, it was more of a weird pseudo-union focused specifically on civil disobedience regarding the coffee issue, but it ruffled feathers nonetheless. The administrators caved to our demands, allowed us to drink coffee again, and even bought each of us a reusable coffee mug as a gesture of goodwill. And that's the story of how a handful of school administrators almost accidentally created a teachers' union over a complete non-issue. Story 10. I worked at a club in Miami, and the owner was out of his mind after years of drug abuse. When the housing market crashed, people were spending far less going out, but he insisted we were all stealing. We had meetings once a week with all kinds of threats. Finally, he installed an automatic pouring system for over $50,000. It basically looks like you're pouring drinks from a soda gun, which is super boring. The fun vibe and flair we had were totally gone, which made sales drop even more. He removed the system 2 weeks later. Story 11. I used to work at an English immersion middle school in Korea. The administration was all Korean, including my boss, the vice principal. Word started going around that the school was under investigation for certain administrators taking bribes to admit students. The vice principal got visibly anxious for a few weeks. Then one Sunday night, we got a text message from one of the Korean teachers at the school. The vice principal has passed away. It turns out he had hanged himself in the school lobby that afternoon. The teaching staff still had to be at school the next morning even though classes were canceled for several days. I remember walking into the school and seeing a custodian mopping the spot where the vice principal had been hanging. Morale declined pretty hard for a while. Story 12. Told a bunch of people they were going to be promoted to get us to do extra work. No one got promoted. I basically did her job for a month. 3 of my coworkers and I quit, and she got fired a few months later. Story 13. Had a boss everyone loved. Then she got transferred to another store, and the new guy who replaced her decided the schedule that we'd all gotten used to needed to be changed. He posted the schedule for the next week, which was completely different from what it had been under the previous manager, and received a bunch of complaints from people saying they couldn't work certain days or times. It seemed he was receptive since he took that schedule down. Then suddenly, he just reposted the exact same schedule and disregarded everyone's concerns. We had some people calling in sick from time to time under the old manager, but this new manager has pretty much half his crew calling out every single day because of his poor tactics. Here's the first thing to learn about being a good manager. You don't need to change things for people to be better workers. You don't need to put your mark on anything if it's working just fine the way it was. Story 14. I have 2. Company 1. Canceled the Christmas party and Christmas bonuses for the whole company because we didn't have the money for it. I found out later the chief executive officer and the chief technology officer used company funds to take a week-long ski vacation in Whistler instead of doing something nice for the employees. You better believe I spread that evidence around the office. Company 2. It's not one specific incident, but my current company in the last couple of years switched from guaranteed permanent employment for anyone who worked there long enough to a system of permanent contract labor for a huge section of their workforce. Rumblings of unionization have started amongst the contract workers. Story 15. We held an extremely positive, pep rally-style company-wide meeting about how they were going to start combining our sick days with our vacation days and now just call them paid time off. This was presented to us as a great thing, since we could all now use our paid time off days fully as vacation days if we wanted to. Once the system was implemented, everyone realized that instead of getting 10 vacation days and 10 sick days per year, we now all had 15 paid time off days. Everyone was upset. I just want to say that anyone bragging in the replies about how this wouldn't affect them because they don't use their sick days has flawed priorities. Story 16. In a company of 6 people, the owner said in a meeting with everyone that his 2 sales guys are irreplaceable and that the rest of us are just paper pushers. Story 17. Had a big fight with his wife in front of everybody. I do not think you should run a restaurant with your family members unless you are really solid with each other. Story 18. At an airplane factory, the manager started rationing gloves, hairnets, masks, and trash bags at the same time we had to go on a 12-by-6 work week, as if that was going to make up for the increase in labor. Story 19. They got rid of their night cleaning crew the week after I started, and we had to learn how to clean the whole department on our own before close. I work in a meat department, so this meant taking apart and cleaning 2 meat grinders and a bandsaw that were covered with meat goop. Almost the whole department quit because of this, but I stuck around and got the hang of it. After about 3 months, though, they hired the cleaning crew back. Now closing is a breeze. Yes, I am aware most meat departments do not have a cleaning crew. Story 20. I worked at a family-owned market that was well-known and loved by locals. The owners were a lovely couple who took care of their employees and would bend over backwards for their customers. They were very active in the community and highly respected. They had a few core employees and would hire temporary staff during the summer and holidays. The temporary staff were mostly high school students and college kids who were home on break. They would bring back the same people as long as they could, and the kids would try to stay as long as they could. The pay was well above market for those positions. We could shop there and get a 75% discount. After 6 months, you got 2 weeks of paid vacation, and the owners would close the store a couple of days a year and host a party for all the employees. It was the best job any high school student in the area could get. I lived right next to the store, and my parents were friends with the owners, so I was given a job there. All my friends were jealous. After working there for a few years, the couple decided they wanted to retire to spend time with their daughter and her children in another state. Many tears were shed, and they had a huge retirement party where they introduced their son to everyone and told us he was taking over. They gushed about his prestigious business education and background. As soon as they were gone, the son decided he was going to remake the store in his image. He fired basically all the staff, most of whom had been there for 10 to 15 years. He then staffed the whole place with homeschool kids and unreliable individuals. He cut the discounts and vacations. He hired some old high school friends to manage the place so he could take the profits to go party and indulge in drugs. The shop went from having the same staff for years to having to retrain an entirely new staff every other month. No one wanted to stay. Managers were reporting perfectly good products as damaged and taking them home. Shelves sat empty. Locals stopped shopping there. The place became a shadow of what it had been. The original owners had enough of their friends complain to them about their son that they came back for a short time and tried to make it right, but it was too late. Their original staff had all moved on, and vendors had stopped doing business with the store. They decided to close the store, sell the property, and move away permanently. Last I heard, the son was in trouble with the Internal Revenue Service, and his wife divorced him when she found him being unfaithful. Story 21. Changed the metrics that determine people's bonuses and included factors important for the business to know, but completely beyond the control of the employees whose bonuses were impacted. For example, we had a right party contact rate, which measured how many times you actually reached the person you were calling versus the number of calls you made. The problem was that the phone number list came from elsewhere, and the people making the calls were just given a list of numbers and had to call them all with no leeway. So you're calling blindly from a list you don't control and get penalized if the list is poor. Oddly enough, the people in charge of making the phone number lists did not have their bonuses influenced by the right party contact rate. Story 22. Started firing people by lining 2 up at a time and seeing which one they preferred to keep. It didn't matter if you were there for 20 years or 2. Also hiring management from outside and not promoting from within, which means the new managers have no knowledge of anything the company does in terms of ethics, procedures, or employee status. It has turned this clique-type environment into every person for themselves. Very toxic. Story 23. Had a worker who worked tirelessly for the job. She really loved the venue, loved the clients, and loved the work, so she would work after hours, take work home, and go in on weekends. She always went above and beyond. We consistently received incredible feedback from clients and suppliers about her. In our contract, it states we are entitled to a $5,000 raise after being employed for 3 years. At our yearly renewal, having been there for 3.5 years, she asked for the raise. She was flat out told there was no room in the budget. She could have taken them to the Fair Work Commission, but instead, she just started looking for jobs. She left, got a great position in a great company, and is loving it. The person they hired to replace her had a quarter of the experience, no passion for the job, and his annual salary was $10,000 higher. Most of us have since left, and the place is falling apart. Story 24. Casually said the best employee was X, and everyone, including X, knew that X was among those who did the least amount of work. X was the most friendly to the boss, always coming in to say, "Hi, Do you need anything? Story 25. We were once in the middle of a very stressful period of work, and everyone was feeling it. However, one afternoon, an offhand comment turned into a conversation that we all got involved with and led to a few laughs. My manager, returning from a meeting, piped up, "Oh, we finished tomorrow's work. Have we? What's all this about the subject matter?" The entire team instantly deflated. Unnecessary. Every employee needs time to blow off a little steam.